Water. It makes up most of our bodies. It makes up most of the planet. But it's what we put into the water that we drink that's making for a national debate.
So as we sit here today, it is not legal for cities and counties in Florida to add fluoride to the water.
It is illegal.
Fluoride has been added to American water systems for decades. Now there's a growing move to remove it. We examine the science and the controversy that may come down to a simple fact.
You have a right to know what's in your water.
Safety and justice will go hand in hand as we...
New York City's newest mayor has a new take on fighting crime, and that's a concern for many in the nation's largest city.
We do not know if we can trust him.
This week, his policies and prospects in the Big Apple.
Over $1 trillion. The amount of student debt in America is larger than the economies of some nations. $1.7 trillion. That is a staggering amount that is owed to the federal government, or in reality to all Americans. Is that ever going to get repaid?
Well, it's possible that a portion of that will not be repaid.
We take a look at the debt and some major changes that could affect millions of borrowers and all taxpayers.
Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. Odds are you grew up not giving too much thought to fluoride in drinking water to prevent cavities. For 80 years, most American cities have been adding the chemical for healthy teeth. For just as long, dentists have been giving children fluoride drops and tablets. Now the FDA has just restricted the use of ingestible fluoride, saying it may be linked to gut and brain issues. And there's a growing movement to remove fluoride from public drinking water. Adding to the fire, a judge's order for the EPA to address added fluoride as a toxic substance for the first time and mitigate what the court says is an unreasonable risk to children's IQ.
We're at the Water Department in Melbourne, Florida, with Mayor Paul Alfrey, who says he first got worried about fluoride when he read the chemicals warning sheet.
From my experience serving in the U.S. Coast Guard, I was very familiar and trained on a material safety data sheet. And when you looked at what it said, it said, what they call fluoride, which is hydroxysillic acid, it would say arsenic, it would say lead, and different things that really are not good for the body.
In January, Melbourne became among the first in Florida to stop fluoridating its water supply.
You have a right to know what's in your water and what's necessary to be in your water. So that really should be your choice.
It's classified as a drug. When it's not put in your drinking water, it's required to be disclosed on products.
Right. And then you had some people say, well, if you're adding that, why don't you add other medications and add, vitamins? And really, that's not our process is to try to develop the cleanest water and really just put the basics in water.
Water fluoridation dates back to the 1940s. The chemicals are potent toxins from industry waste like aluminum and phosphate fertilizer plants. Factories once released the waste into the air and water. When health concerns put that to a halt, the industry began selling the toxic waste as fluoride components to add to public water to fight cavities, effectively flipping a costly hazard into a $1.2 billion a year business.
It's a hazardous material, and it's getting rid of it. I mean, now they have to figure out where to put it. They have to pay. So really, it was, it was the ability to get rid of it and dump it in drinking water and get paid to do so.
Melbourne's action was followed by a statewide ban. In July, Florida became the second state after Utah to halt fluoridation.
So as we sit here today, it is not legal for cities and counties in Florida to add fluoride to the water.
It is illegal. That's correct. It is illegal for cities and counties to add fluoride to water currently.
Florida Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo says only after a deep dive into the research did he come to support banning fluoride.
I mean, it is a poison, and folks don't know that. Most folks don't know that.
On the other side, staunch fluoride advocates, including dental associations. The American and Florida Dental Associations wouldn't agree to an interview. The Florida Dental Association referred us to pediatric dentist Dr. Johnny Johnson, who told us he's only speaking for himself and not any dental groups nor the American Fluoridation Society.
There is no scientific evidence that water fluoridation should be stopped.
Johnson argues that many fluoride studies show no connection to lower IQ, bone fractures, or other health risks, and the ones that do used flawed methodologies. He's particularly critical of a 2019 Canadian study that suggested a link between fluoride exposure in pregnant women and lower IQ in boys.
The worst thing is they've never allowed their data to be evaluated by independent researchers, and a group in this country worked for 2 years trying to get that data, and eventually the university that houses it said, no, you're not getting it.
Johnson warns of dire consequences if the anti-fluoride movement expands.
Dental cavities are the most common chronic disease of adults and children in the U.S. and around the world. It is an infectious disease, and one of the most common ways to stop it is through water fluoridation. We know that abscessed teeth lead to brain infections, septicemia, lung infections and collapse, heart attacks, strokes, and people dying. That is a very serious disease, and fluoridation helps to reduce that greatly.
These concerns, they're completely bunk. It's totally bogus. Like, nothing like that is going to happen. The fluoride in water is not the thing that's going to make the difference between good dental health in Florida and bad dental health in Florida.
The other side will point to a lot of studies and say there are weaknesses in them, and that there are many studies on the other side saying that there is no risk that comes with fluoride.
But the fact is, yes, there are some studies that don't show a relationship, and that's true. However, still, when looking at them, what is striking is that the vast majority line up on this side of fluoride potentially being harmful. And the additional piece of information is that not only do you have congruence across many, many studies in different countries, but there's also a presence of a dose-response relationship. It is poor judgment to ignore that. People can do it, like the American Dental Association, they can do that, but it is poor judgment.
One of the big arguments that some of the dental experts make has to do with what will happen if cavities aren't prevented with fluoride in the drinking water. Yeah. More children, they say, will be hospitalized and need dental treatments in an emergency room and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's one of the strategies they use. So what they won't tell you is that, even before any of these efforts in Florida, something like a third, maybe a quarter of Floridians lived in areas without fluoridated water, and their teeth are not falling out over there. So this whole idea that the floor is just going to come out from underneath this in terms of dental health is not supported by any data. There's no data to support that.
On point, Hawaii, with the least fluoridated population in the U.S. last year, also have the best dental health. Still, fluoride advocates claim there are many examples of measurably poor health in places with less fluoridation. Meantime, a court ruling in California last year is forcing the issue at the federal level. A judge ordered the EPA to regulate added fluoride for the first time as a toxic substance, saying it poses an unreasonable risk to children's IQ. The industry-friendly EPA under Biden and now Trump is appealing, apparently on a different page than the Trump administration's FDA and CDC. FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary.
So fluoride is a classic example of how medical groupthink gets a very myopic view. The field saw this potential reduction in cavities and started saying, let's put this in drinking water. Well, it turns out, for the same reason it may kill some bacteria on the teeth, it's also killing bacteria in the microbiome in the gut. And so the billion different bacteria that live in the gut normally, that are critical for digestion and mental health and produce serotonin and vitamins, that microbiome is altered by fluoride. And so one of the actions I took at the FDA was to remove concentrated fluoride tablets for babies. And that's why we are saying, let's look at the data on fluoride. It's associated with lower IQs. It accumulates in a certain part of the brain. It may not reduce cavities, as the Cochrane review suggests, and it's altering the gut health of a generation of children. So we need to stop and be honest with people and let them know when we don't know something.
Overall this year, 17 states introduced bills to ban fluoridation. 2 passed, 10 failed, and 5 are pending. Locally in the past year, at least 62 communities stopped adding fluoride to water.
Practical advice for people who are concerned because of the things that you say. What can they do if fluoride is not being added to their water?
There's no substitute for water fluoridation. You cannot do anything that delivers the right amount of fluoride to an entire community without a single change in someone's behavior. You don't have to think about doing anything.
At one point, more doctors chose Camel cigarettes, and baby powder was good. So we're learning more and more. Matter of fact, doctors are investing more and more, and they're seeing that some of the stuff that we used to do wasn't so healthy.
The EPA's appeal of the fluoride court ruling is still pending. If the agency is forced to regulate added fluoride, it could set stricter limits, require warnings or monitoring, or ban it altogether.